The Cricket World Cup, a quadrennial extravaganza, has cemented its place as the pinnacle of ODI cricket. A global spectacle, it showcases the sport's finest talents and attracts millions of viewers worldwide. While the first tournament was held in England in 1975. Since then, the event has been a rotating showcase, with various countries hosting the tournament over the years. With a format that includes a qualifying phase and a final tournament, the Cricket World Cup features 10 teams vying for the coveted trophy. The tournament has seen a diverse range of champions, with Australia dominating the field with 6 titles. India and West Indies have each clinched 2 titles, while Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and England have 1 each. The best performance by a non-full member team came from Kenya in 2003, when they reached the semi-finals. Australia, the reigning champions, are set to defend their title in the upcoming 2027 World Cup, which will be hosted jointly by South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. Would you like to know the chronicle behind this coveted tournament? Stay tuned and do not forget to subscribe to Sports Hooked. The 1975 Cricket World Cup marked the inaugural edition of this prestigious tournament, serving as a milestone for ODI cricket. The tournament, sponsored by Prudential Assurance Company, featured 8 teams divided into 2 groups. Each match was played over 60 overs per side, with group stage matches scheduled to take place between the 7th and the 14th of June. The top 2 teams from each group advanced to the semi-finals, with the winners meeting in the final. 8 teams were invited to compete at the World Cup, the 6 full members of the International Cricket Conference, and 2 other sides, Sri Lanka and East Africa. South Africa was not allowed to complete due to the sporting boycott of the country, which took place during apartheid era, the ICC having placed a moratorium on tours of the country in 1970. England and New Zealand emerged as the top teams in Group A, while the West Indies topped Group B, securing their place in the semi-finals alongside Australia. In the semi-finals, Australia defeated England, and the West Indies overcame New Zealand. The final match of the 1975 Cricket World Cup between West Indies and Australia was a thrilling contest. The West Indies, batting first, posted a strong total of 291 runs thanks to Clive Lloyd's century. Australian bowler Gary Gilmore took 5 wickets but couldn't prevent the West Indies from reaching a competitive score. In reply, Australia's Ian Chappell made a solid start, but 3 run-outs from Viv Richards put their chase in jeopardy. Despite a late surge from Dennis Lillee and Jeff Thomson, Australia fell short by 17 runs, and the West Indies claimed the inaugural World Cup title. Glenn Turner from New Zealand led the tournament in runs with 333, while Australian bowler Gary Gilmore, despite playing only in the final 2 matches, finished as the top wicket-taker with 11 wickets. The 1975 Cricket World Cup laid the foundation for this iconic tournament, setting the stage for future editions and establishing ODI cricket as a major force in the cricketing world. The 1979 Cricket World Cup, the second edition of the tournament, was held in England with the participation of 8 teams, including Canada, who joined Sri Lanka as qualifiers. The format remained unchanged from the previous edition, with 2 teams from each group advancing to the semi-finals. Other than Lord's, which hosted only 1 group stage match, and the Oval, which hosted 3, each of the grounds was used for 2 matches during the group stage. Old Trafford and the Oval were the grounds chosen for the 2 semi-finals, whereas the Lord's was chosen to host the final as it is the most historic stadium ever seen. England and Pakistan qualified from Group A, while the West Indies topped Group B ahead of New Zealand. In the semi-finals, the West Indies and England defeated Pakistan and New Zealand, respectively, setting up a rematch of the 1975 final. The West Indies successfully defended their title, defeating England by 92 runs. West Indian batsman Gordon Greenidge led the tournament in runs with 253, while English player Mike Hendrick was the leading wicket-taker with 10 wickets. The 1983 Cricket World Cup was the 3rd edition of the tournament, held in England and Wales. 8 teams participated, consisting of 7 full ICC members, including recently appointed full member Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe, who qualified by winning the 1982 ICC trophy, with England, India, Pakistan, and the West Indies qualifying for the semi-finals. Kapil Dev, the Indian captain, scored a remarkable 175 not out against Zimbabwe, which was the highest ODI score at the time. This innings was crucial in India's qualification for the semi-finals. The 1983 Cricket World Cup final was a historic upset, with India defeating the heavily favoured West Indies. India, batting first, struggled against the West Indies bowling attack, with only Srikanth and Amarnath offering significant resistance. However, valuable contributions from the tail-end batsmen, including Sundeep Patil and Madan Lal, helped India reach a total of 183 runs. In response, India's bowlers capitalized on the pitch conditions to dismiss the West Indies for 140 runs, securing a 43-run victory. Amarnath and Madan Lal were key contributors with 3 wickets each, while Viv Richards was the West Indies' top scorer. The Indian victory was a remarkable upset and remains the lowest successful defended total in a World Cup final. The 1987 Cricket World Cup, the 4th edition of the tournament, was held in India and Pakistan, marking the first time it was hosted outside England. The format remained similar to the previous edition, with 8 teams competing. However, the number of overs per team was reduced from 60 to 50, establishing the current standard for ODIs. The 1987 Cricket World Cup was sponsored by Reliance Industries, founded by Dhirubhai Ambani, and was officially known as the Reliance Cup 1987. During this tournament, Chetan Sharma clinched first-ever hat-trick in Cricket World Cup history against New Zealand, where he clean-bowled Ken Rutherford, Ian Smith and Ewan Chatfield with last 3 balls of the 42nd over. The final was a closely contested match between Australia and England. Australia, batting first, posted a total of 253 runs, with David Boone scoring a half-century. In response, England's chase was hampered by early wickets and a lack of momentum. Despite solid contributions from Bill Athey, Mike Gadding, and Alan Lamb, England fell short by 7 runs, and Australia claimed their first World Cup title. Australia emerged as the champions for the first time, defeating arch-rivals England in a closely contested final at Eden Gardens. The tournament saw the surprise elimination of the West Indies, who had been considered strong contenders. The host nations, India and Pakistan, also failed to reach the final, both being eliminated in the semi-finals. The 1992 Cricket World Cup was the first to be held outside England, that was introduced in 7 and 11 venues of Australia and New Zealand. It featured several innovations including coloured clothing, white balls, and floodlit matches. South Africa's readmission to the ICC added another team to the tournament, which used a round-robin format for the first time, where the latter team would be added to the tournament as a test-playing nation after the end of apartheid in 1990. For the first time, the World Cup was not held after a 4-year gap, but after a 5-year gap. The controversial rain rule introduced in this tournament, known as the most productive overs method, was criticized for its unfairness to the team batting second in rain-affected matches, which was clearly witnessed in the second semi-final between South Africa and England. This led to the development of the Duckworth-Lewis method. The 1992 Cricket World Cup final was a thrilling match between Pakistan and England. Despite a slow start, Pakistan posted a competitive total of 250 runs thanks to solid contributions from Imran Khan and Javed Miandad. England's chase was hampered by early wickets and a crucial decision by Imran Khan to bring on Wasim Akram early in the second innings. Akram's double strike turned the match in Pakistan's favour, and they eventually won by 22 runs. This final is notable for being the only World Cup final played on a weekday. The 1996 Cricket World Cup was a significant event in the history of the sport. It was the second time India and Pakistan hosted the tournament, and Sri Lanka's first time. However, the tournament was marred by controversy before it even began. During this tournament, Sachin Tendulkar and Anil Kumble emerged as the highest run scorer and highest wicket-taker respectively. Australia and the West Indies refused to travel to Sri Lanka due to security concerns following a bombing in Colombo. Sri Lanka, despite offering maximum security, questioned the validity of this decision and argued that the ICC had already deemed it safe. After extensive negotiations, the ICC ruled in favour of Sri Lanka, awarding them both games on forfeit. This decision automatically qualified Sri Lanka for the quarter-finals, giving them a significant advantage. All the test-playing nations participated in the competition, including Zimbabwe, who became the 9th test status member of the ICC following the last World Cup. The 3 associate teams to qualify through the 1994 ICC Trophy, the United Arab Emirates, Kenya and the Netherlands, also made their World Cup debuts in 1996. During this tournament, Gary Kirsten of South Africa scored 188 not out against UAE, which is still highest scored by Proteas in World Cup history. The semi-final between India and Sri Lanka in the 1996 Cricket World Cup is infamous for its chaotic and controversial ending. The match was being played at Eden Gardens in Kolkata, and India needed to win to advance to the final. However, the match was abandoned due to unruly crowd behavior. As India struggled to chase down Sri Lanka's target, the crowd became increasingly agitated. Bottles and other projectiles were thrown onto the field, disrupting the game and putting the players at risk. The match officials were forced to abandon the match, and Sri Lanka was awarded the victory by default. The final of the 1996 Cricket World Cup between Australia and Sri Lanka was a thrilling match that ultimately saw Sri Lanka emerge victorious. Sri Lanka's victory was a historic moment for the country, as it was their first ever World Cup title. The The match is remembered for its intensity and the crucial role played by Arjuna Ranatunga in leading Sri Lanka to victory. The 1999 Cricket World Cup was a significant event in the history of the sport. It was hosted primarily in England, with matches also held in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and the Netherlands. The tournament featured 12 teams divided into 2 groups of 6, with each team playing all others in their group once. The top 3 teams from each group advanced to the Super Sixes, a new concept for the Cricket World Cup. One of the most remarkable aspects of the 1999 World Cup was the match between Pakistan and India, which took place during the Kargil War. This was the only time in the history of the sport that 2 countries at war faced each other in a competitive match. The match was played in a tense atmosphere, but both teams maintained a spirit of sportsmanship and focused on the game. A new type of cricket ball, the White Duke, was introduced for the first time in the 1999 World Cup. British Cricket Balls Ltd claimed that the balls behaved identically to the balls used in previous World Cups. Experiments showed they were harder and swung more.
In this tournament, the South African all-rounder Lance Klusener had the all-time highest batting average that had helped the Proteas to reach the semifinals. The final was a thrilling contest between Australia and Pakistan, where Pakistan won the toss and chose to bat first. However, their batting lineup struggled against the Australian bowling attack, and they were all out for a modest score of 132. Shane Warne was particularly effective, taking 4 wickets for 33 runs. In the second innings, Australia's Adam Gilchrist launched a quick-fire attack, scoring a 50 in no time. Australia chased down the target with ease, losing only 2 wickets and winning the World Cup. This was Australia's second World Cup triumph, thereby igniting their dominance under this prestigious campaign. If you like this video, then do not forget to subscribe to this channel and click on the second part of the video from the end screen to know more about the chronicle of this reputed tournament.